The Calgary Stampede has ridden off into the sunset for another year. Closing ceremonies were held last night, but one of the final events was marred by tragedy. 3 horses collapsed on the track during a chuckwagon race and were euthanized. The CBC's Anis Hadari was there.
Chuckwagon fans who were watching the Calgary Stampede at home on television may not have known anything had gone wrong, but if you were in the stands in person, you definitely knew that something had happened. In the 8th heat of the second-last race of the Rangeland Derby, the horses pulling Evan Salmon's wagon went down. The Calgary Stampede says one of Salmon's lead horses suffered a leg injury, fracturing one of its left hind bones. That led to 2 other horses on the wagon also being injured. But afterwards, at the 3rd turn of the racetrack, there were tarps covering the scene. According to the Stampede, veterinary staff provided immediate treatment there, but there was nothing they could do, and the veterinarians determined all 3 injured horses needed to be euthanized. It's not the first incident involving Evan Salmon in this year's Stampede. On Thursday, one of his horses died after they hit the guardrail during a chuckwagon race. That was after 2 other drivers collided, causing a chain reaction. Animal rights activists were already calling on the Stampede to cancel the chuckwagon events entirely. Now, the Stampede says after Sunday's tragedy, they are going to be reviewing chuckwagon safety, but they also say they don't know what that review will look like. Including the 3 deaths on Sunday, 6 horses died in this year's races. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Calgary.
For more, I want to bring Jen Webster. She is the publisher of the Western Horse Review, and her family's ranch also trains and breeds horses south of Calgary. So, Jen, you work with horses for a living. You write about them. What are your feelings knowing that 6 horses had to be put down at the Calgary Stampede this year?
Well, I mean, nobody's denying that it was tragic. And my heart goes out to the chuckwagon community, because a loss like that is devastating. It's devastating emotionally, devastating financially. You know, some of those people, that's how they put food on the table for their families. And obviously, it wasn't in anybody's best interest if we have injured horses. But the chuckwagons are part of our culture here in the West. They help us keep the traditions of Western heritage alive. They help us teach our children about our history. And really, why shouldn't they continue? Well,
the Stampede ended with a promise to review chuckwagon safety. In your view, given your experience, do you think chuckwagons can be made safer?
I do. We've already seen the Calgary Stampede Committee come through, microchip the chuckwagon horses. They have some of the best veterinarians in the world working behind the scenes. Outrider horses, they go through the same thorough examination that the wagon horses do. They've made rule changes in the past where they've reduced the number of outriders. They can do it again. I know that they will sit back and they will review things from this year, and they will make changes, and I do believe that they will make it better.
I mean, critics did renew their calls for an end to the rodeo and the chuckwagon races at the Stampede. If you had a chance to sit down with animal rights advocates and talk, or critics who think that these events should not take place, what would you say to them?
I would say, come to our barns. Come and see what we do with these animals. Come and see how some of these animals end up in our family portraits. We love these horses. We do the best that we can to take care of them, look after their health, feed them, nutrition, veterinary care, everything. And if they could really see what we do to take care of these animals, maybe they might change their minds. But the problem is some of these activists don't even want to listen to us. They just think what they think, and they want to call an end to it, and that's it. And it's really hard to negotiate with people like that.
And I understand you had to put down a horse after an accident in your pasture. I understand it stepped into a gopher hole and broke a bone. Tell us about that and what you had to do and what that was like.
It was horrible. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you have to take the kids away because it's devastating for the whole family. It's one of those things that the horse did it to itself in a big, gigantic pasture. There's a gopher hole. It stepped into it. It did it all on its own. And we bring a veterinarian in to try to see what we can do. And then when that outside third party says to us, look, there's nothing that can be done, you cannot let the animal suffer. So you got to do the right thing. But it wasn't a fun day, and you hope that you never have that happen again, right?
Jen, it was really great to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Jen Webster is the publisher of the Western Horse Review. She joined me from her family's ranch just south of Calgary.